Repair, renew, reclaim. And now your host, Allison Jordan.
I found my music. All right, guys. Welcome to another episode of The Brain Truth with Allison Jordan. This is my favorite song, y'all. This is produced by the DJ, Jesse Sanders. And I'm going to make this like a real single, I think. All right, everybody. So, okay. We had a lot of technical stuff. Now I'm officially a tech person. So anybody that's watching this on YouTube, you can now watch this on StreamYard. And then you can also watch this on thebraintruth.com. So we're on all platforms. We have an amazing show. I just kind of want to say something. Like last week was so freaking amazing. I'm still reeling from last week's first show and all the people that wrote in. Some of you are watching, but let's get into it. I want to thank my sponsors, Dr. Rita Lifestyles, Pretty 12 Cosmetics, NAMI South Suburbs, Patch Party Club, Brain Truth and Wakana, Epic Arts and Entertainment, NAMI Illinois, and D Champs. Okay, so we're gonna have a really good show today. What this show is sort of like a continuation of me sort of setting the tone for my journey to mental health and wellness. And so what I did was, after you guys watched the show and we got an overwhelming amount of people that were writing in, and I was reading these emails and I was reading these letters, and I was just like, wow. I mean, it was so many things that you guys shared with me that touched my soul. And what I cannot do is really do anything but direct you to my antidote, to direct you to the ingredients and to the recipe of my journey to healing. And that's why I have these ladies. I do want to have a disclaimer. Dr. Gettys, can you read my disclaimer for the Brain Truth? Because I want to make sure that you know I'm just like you. I'm a consumer. I'm here to learn. I'm here to grow. My tagline is repair, renew, and reclaim in this mental health journey. So I have people with me today that's going to help us in this journey. But Dr. Gettys, can you read my disclaimer?
Sure, I can. Hello, everyone. So we're just going to read this quick disclaimer for this evening. Although we will cover very useful and vital information, please note that this broadcast is for informational and educational purposes only. This radio broadcast does not serve the purpose of providing medical treatment or therapy, diagnosis, prevention, or cure for any physical, mental, or emotional issue, disease, or condition. And as part of our audience, you agree and acknowledge that at this time, we are not providing medical treatment, and that we encourage you to seek the advice of your own medical provider or mental health provider regarding any questions or concerns you have about your specific health or any medications or supplements you're taking. Do not disregard any medical advice or delay seeking medical advice because of any of our information delivered here this evening. And we will provide resources that can be utilized for all of our listeners to seek professional treatment. So as a member of our audience, you agree that we assume no liability for any physical or mental disease, condition, or issue, or any other type of loss or damage due to any information shared tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Gettys. So let me get into it. I want to introduce everybody right now that is on the panel today. My recipe, my soup, my stew. Okay. So I have Miss Sandra Anderson. Sandra Anderson is a licensed clinical social worker, 30 years owner of Tranquil Journey, and she's the Brain Truth Advisor. Welcome, Sandra.
Great.
We have Stephanie Reynolds. Stephanie is a certified life coach, motivational speaker, minister, author, and the Brain Truth executive producer. She's my boss, y'all. I just listen to what she tells me. And then we've got my friend, Dr. Rita McGuire. Oh my God, this is going to be long. It's taking up all the time on the show. She's a globally recognized OBGYN, cannabis advocate and educator, owner of and founder and medical director of Wakana, newly certified in trichology, which I don't know what it is, but I know it's big because she be taking like, don't call me right now. And so she'll tell us about that later. She is a medical director and founder of Wakana, my partner in Swabs and Swirl, where we go out and do COVID rapid testings with our partner, Gemini Labs. And she's the Brain Truth medical doctor, advisor, and producer. She didn't know that though. She just found that out. Okay, we've got my spiritual advisor, June Hollingsworth, prophetess June Hollingsworth. She is an ordained minister and founder of JA Prophetic Advisement, author, and contributor to the Brain Truth. And when I tell you that she's a prophetic advisor, she told me 8 months ago I was going to do this show. She told me 8 months ago I was going to be in the presence of strong women.
Wow.
So period. I'm getting chills just even saying that out loud. I've got the queen. Where's the queen? She's a real queen, y'all. She's an international ordained officiant, community activist, and certified youth MHFA ambassador of communication in Ghana and West Africa. And she's the truth. I like this. The resident of Love Conquers All coordinator. I love that. She keeping us all in love because, you know, love is everything. Love is everything.
Sometimes.
And then we've got Kathy Conley. She is a psychiatric nurse practitioner who also served 17 years as a psychiatric pediatric nurse. And she's the Brain Truth contributor. Yay. Okay. And then I have, who would I miss? I got one more. Her name is Pastor Jeanette Jordan. She's an ordained minister, certified life coach, and founder of Journey to the Cross Ministries, and also founder of Women of Faith Caregiver Support Group, which is sponsored by the Alzheimer's Association of Chicago. She's our in-house pastor as well, but her best title, you guys who are watching, her best title is She's My Mama. So welcome, ladies. Welcome, ladies. So I just want to go through each person. I'll just call you out now that everybody kind of know you guys have all these wonderful titles. You're connected to all the things that have been working for me that we want to offer to everybody. And anybody that wants to get in touch with any of these ladies, you can go to thebraintruth.com. You can literally click on the link and it'll link to making appointments with them. It'll link to having meetings, getting a prophetic advisement, to everything. So they're right there on thebraintruth.com. So I want to go to you ladies one by one because I really want to first ask you the question that's going to be the driving force of this conversation is the why. Just what is your why and why are you connected to this journey of mental health? So I'll start with you, Dr. Gettings.
Okay, well, so my why is honestly helping people live their healthiest life. And one of the things that I have come to learn as a medical doctor is that our body, although the medical system tends to split it up, is one unit. And so as a doctor specializing in psychiatry, oftentimes the brain is kind of given a little shade, you know, sometimes it's not respected like all the other organ systems. So for me, it's really helping people to understand how their body works and to get away from the history of separating the brain from all of the other functions of the body. And I just want to make sure I'm clear. Is this my 7 or are we going to
Go for it, sis. Go for it.
That's half of your 7. Sandra Anderson, what is your why?
Well, my why really started out at birth. And I think that this career kind of chose me based upon my life circumstances. And, you know, I was adopted 6 months in, and that created a storm of uncertainty, of concern, of questioning my worth, questioning, you know, so many things that that impacted me. And that feeling of unworthiness and not sure where you fit in and how you fit in, and why got me to a point of wanting to make sure that other people didn't feel that emptiness, that hole. And what do you do with that when you finally have that? What do you do with that? And how do you where do you get the support around that? So you know, that's kind of where the journey started for me. I have a lot of stories about along the way how things happen, but I think that because my start was that, my why was created for me. It wasn't necessarily chosen by me. So so as I, you know, have grown in this field, 30 years of, you know, watching everything from adolescents and young children all the way up to, you know, geriatric population, and everything in between. Just kind of really trying to figure out how to meet people where they're at. And my newest venture with my new practice, Tranquil Journey, you know, our goal is transforming hurt, pain, and trauma into hope, peace, and tranquility. And so letting people know that there's hope for a better day. There's a hope for a better tomorrow. And really allowing people to evaluate that and look at that. And sometimes it's as simple as taking a shift in perspective.
Yeah.
Other times it needs more serious intervention. But so, you know, I kind of figure out where to work. And most of my clinicians are newer clinicians. So because I really want people to learn how to do therapy in a healthy way. You know, one of the things we don't learn a lot in school is intervention. We can assess the mess out of somebody. We know what your issues are, but then what do you do with somebody who has those issues? And so, you know, a lot of the work that I've done has really been being creative around intervention and understanding that people learn in different ways and how to meet them where they're at and address how they learn and do interventions that really support people in that way.
Thank you, Sandra. To you, Stephanie, what's your why?
My why? Well, first, let me say, Allison, I'm so happy to be on the show. And I'm looking at this panel. You have a beautiful panel of melanin and pink and all of that great stuff.
We should all be real.
My why. I really just, my heart is to see people live their most authentic and best life. I've had my own share of trauma and had to journey through healing and getting to a place of purpose. And my heart and my why is really to help other people realize that there is power in your pain. There's purpose in the pain. And that as we embrace the journey and embrace the healing, we really can come out our most authentic, best self, who we love and we embrace, and we're able to move forward in purpose. And so that's really my why, is to help people to get to that point.
Thank you. Dr. Rita McGuire, what is your why?
Wow. Well, thank you again, Allison, for having me on this very esteemed panel. These women are beautiful, and so are you, Allison.
Thank you.
My why is really to help both men and women understand that mental health can be addressed through diet, exercise, stress reduction. So I want to bring in the more holistic way of approaching mental health. You know, as an obstetrician gynecologist, I see women who are going through menopause, perimenopause, postmenopause. Our hormones are raging, you know, and it affects our mood. So really understanding that there are alternatives to addressing mental health.
Yes.
And that is through a natural, organic, holistic way, through herbs, through CBD, through cannabis, through diet, through exercise, through prayer, through meditations.
Yes.
And bringing all of those holistic ways of addressing mental health. So
Thank you, Doctor. Pastor Jeanette, Reverend Jordan. And if you guys could keep yourself muted until the next person's talking.
Okay, I think you've called on me, your mother.
Yes, I did.
First, I want to say, Allison, that I know that your dad is so proud of you. My husband, Allison's father, suffers from Alzheimer's and was diagnosed around 2015. And that has been a journey. And so this is one of the pokes and the pricks into my why. Alzheimer's is a memory condition. And I worked very, very hard with the Alzheimer's Association, being a caregiver support group educational facilitator. My why also is because my daughter, Allison, suffered this awful, sneaky disease, mental health. And I want to be there as her support. I want to be there for her audience's support, for prayer, for coaching, to give some love, to let them know that there is peace and joy in the journey. I do understand, even after during the pandemic, that we all suffer some trauma that has led to some sort of mental illness, even myself. So I need this program to help me maneuver going through this disease. And so I'm here for everyone. And my prayers are daily for this show to take off. And if we only help one somebody, then what we do will not have been in vain.
Thank you, Mama. She just gonna make this like a Lifetime movie talking about my daddy. And if you guys don't know, my father's Dr. Robert Jordan. He was a pediatrician, amazing, 40 years, almost 40 years. First Black chief resident of pediatrics at Rush Presbyterian. Dr. Rita, you know very well about my daddy. Just an amazing physician. I was his right hand, his executive administrator, his assistant, everything. So thank you. Queen, what is your why? You have to unmute yourself.
Excited and forgot that part. I'm grateful to be here. And again, this is a beautiful group of women. My why starts with my relationship with my mother. My mother had me when she was 17. And there was some things there. There's lots of story behind that. I was the mother of 5 wonderful children for a long time alone. And in that, each child is different. And there are definitely different pieces of me. And we dealt with some mental challenges over the years. Everybody has a different perspective. During the course of my life, I've always worked with children. I was an emergency foster parent to babies born addicted. I've experienced children on an international scale, and there are things there that are just never recognized or diagnosed that we need to be mindful of. And as women, when we have children, especially daughters, that thing continues. And I believe as a melanin woman, a lot of us tend not to want to deal with that or can't see it. And then when our children say something, the only response we have is to the experience we've had with our parents. And we're going based on how we were raised. And not that it was wrong or bad, but we don't know how to deal with the mental challenges that our children face, especially now. So now is the time for us, like Pastor Mom or Pastor Jeanette said, during the course of this time, we've all experienced something. We're all there. So this feels right. This is the time for us to unpack, get real. Right. Because if we can't be real with ourselves, we can't be real with anyone else. And I believe that the true change for this country and this world will start with this panel of women.
Boom. Thank you. June, half prophetess. What is your why?
Well, first of all, I want to start out by thanking you, Allison, for having me on. And I agree with all these amazing women that this is all of you, first of all, are beautiful as all outdoors. And it's just
Thank you.
awesome to be on this panel with you. And I agree with the last statement that was made. This show is already successful. This show is already impactful. And it's going to reach the stakes that are going to be put down on the ground for this show, not only spiritually, but naturally, are going to be wide, and the borders are going to extend across the nation. This show is really going to go into the soul of men and women and pull them out and help them to heal. So my why, I've been in ministry. This is my 38th year in ministry, working with pastors and pastors' wives. And my why started when I found out who I was. You've got to know who you are. It's just like when a baby is born, they say, okay, so before you take the baby home, what are you going to name it? It's an it until you name it. And once you name it, then it takes on a life. So when we know what our purpose is, that's when we really take on life. And so when the Lord helped me and told me that I was a prophet and in the office of a prophet, then I realized what my purpose was. And I help men and women find out their purpose, that's everything, to know why you were created. What is your assignment? And a purpose and assignment are two different things. You have several assignments through life, but you only have one purpose. There's 7 mountains. As I teach, the 7 mountains, 7 spheres of influence, and you're going to be in one or several of those spheres. So I teach that. I guide people through that. It is an absolute privilege to hear the voice of God and to hear it accurately, hear him accurately, and to be able to release what he's saying with acute accuracy. And so he's blessed me. I don't take it for granted. It's an absolute privilege. I try my best not to be in pride, because if he doesn't talk, I am nothing. I hear nothing.
Yeah.
It's only his voice. So with that said, I wrote a book, We Dream. It debuted at #1 on Amazon. I do interpretation. Thank you. I do dream interpretation. I've been interpreting dreams for several years. I used to be the director of School of the Prophets for about 3.5 years. I've done 2 sets of schools directing. And so I teach prophecy, and then I have a prophetic advisement business. So I'm all about prophecy and hearing God's purpose for men and women. And so dream, I will end with this, that's like one of God's #1 ways of speaking to us is in the night when we're quiet, not distracted in our dreams. So I was gifted with an ability to interpret dreams, and I have an online dream class that goes with the book. So just helping people find out who they are is my why.
Thank you. And last, Kathy Conley. What is your why?
Let me unmute. Well, my why is I enjoy helping people. I love psychology, learning about why people do certain things. I was very curious at an early age as to why some of my family members, some of my siblings, we were exposed to a lot of the same things and more traumatic or even negative things. But I noticed that for whatever reason, I feel like definitely it's a blessing that I did okay, but some of my other siblings did not. Again, despite us living in the same household and things. And I started to think more and more about that and started to realize what some of the differences were. And I'm convinced to this day that those differences can make a huge difference for other kids. So I've always loved kids, and I decided to become a pediatric nurse. worked at the hospital, and I started working for a community program at Children's Hospital, working with kids that were victims of violence. And I found that, and I was just a regular nurse at that time, so I was limited. I was supposed to be addressing the medical needs after they were discharged, but their mental health needs was huge. And it was frustrating not being able to find them the resources. So I decided to go back to school and become a psychiatric nurse practitioner to help them myself. Yes. And so, and even with that, I'm just convinced, and my ultimate goal was always to try to break that cycle, because again, from my own family, we all know that, it will just continue. If your parents don't really know, kind of thing, then it'll pass on to the kids, and then the kids have kids. And then, so I just wanted to contribute to helping to break the cycle and educating, people about mental health and making it not such a horrible thing, we're hesitant to get help. So
thank you, Kathy. And that's it. Everybody, first of all, thank you so much for giving me your why, because that's why we're here. On my journey to healing, and I think, Dr. Rita, you encompassed it. It was a combination of prayer, a combination of meditation, a combination of you coming to me and bringing me CBD gummies, and, talking to my psychiatrist. Like I told you guys in the first show, when I was in the hospital, in this psychiatric hospital, River Edge, the psychiatrist was like, oh, so you're going to talk today? And I was like, I've never seen you in my life. And he goes, I've been talking to you every day for 9 days. And I was like, 9 days? And I went in that room, I got on my knees, and I said, God, where was I? Right? Where did I go for 9 days? Right? That's when it hit me. God, if you get me out of this room, I will dedicate my life to mental health. So I start praying my way out of whatever was going on with my brain. Okay. So that's why we're here. I want to tell people the differentiation of all the elements of mental health, be it spiritual depression, clinical depression. What does the brain do? What's the differentiation between a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a life coach? So we're going to kind of like spoon feed it to everybody, because, it's choppy. I'm choppy. Can you guys hear me okay? I'm going to spoon feed it to everybody listening. But before I go there, I want to say one thing, that we're going to reframe what this word is. We're not going to call it a disease. I think Dr. Gettings was clear. I'm going to let her articulate on that. I will not say I have mental health illness. I have mental, whatever you're going to tell us, but we need the reframing now and move forward. What is that reframing, Dr. Gettings? Unmute.
Can you all hear me okay? Because it was a little choppy.
Yes.
So
yeah, that's what someone said. It was a little.
Yes. So the reframing, I think, is really important, just because when you identify someone as sick or diseased, right, the opposite of ease, I think we just have to be careful with our terminology. And we know that mental health treatment can already carry a lot of stigma. I think that one of the reasons why a lot of people shy away from seeking anything that is labeled mental health is, one, because of the history that we have of how we've treated individuals who have different diagnoses and limiting their freedoms, things that we've had to fight for in that regard. So I think right now what we still see is a reluctance to seek treatment, because people oftentimes are worried about their freedom. I don't want to talk to you. You could potentially commit me, or as they say here in Florida, Baker Act me, or lock me up, right? So all I'm saying is, when I speak on mental health, I use terms such as wellness, mental health. How do we achieve mental wellness, versus saying, how do I get over my mental illness? How do I continue to promote healing and health and wholeness, as opposed to slapping labels on people? As a professional, that's what I see people run from, even as it relates to different diagnoses. which is a different conversation. But just in terms of seeking help from a professional, one, you don't have to be sick. You don't have to be ill, and you don't have to refer to yourself as that. You have something that you want to improve and work on and seek professional guidance. And that's it.
Yeah. So we don't have a mental disease or illness. We are living with, what do we say?
So what I'm saying, as far as the term dis-ease, which is a different term, right? That applies to all of our biological systems, right? So there may be a time, space where you are out of ease and you are in a state of dis-ease. But as it relates to the term mental illness, I prefer to say mental wellness, and how do I promote mental wellness? How do I improve my mental health? Exactly.
Okay, got it. Okay,
so now
got it. So let's move through. What is the difference, Sandra, between a therapist and what you do, and then a psychiatrist, and then a life coach? Break that down quickly.
Well, a therapist can be a licensed clinical social worker, which I am. It can be a licensed clinical counselor, licensed professional counselor. And we, the main difference between what we do and what maybe a psychologist can do the same thing we can do. A psychologist, though, can also do testing. So that's kind of the difference there. And a psychologist is normally a PhD level clinician. Our level of licensure is master's degree. And then for a psychiatrist, I don't know if Dr. Gettings, do you want to, make that distinction?
She's a doctor.
Huh?
She's a doctor,
yes,
right?
She is a doctor, and she can prescribe medication. Sometimes people will come to me thinking that they can get medication from me, and that's not what we do. So we try to partner with psychiatrists to make sure that if medication is needed, that they get that there. And my philosophy has always been, you do not do one necessarily without the other. Like, you should not be on medication and not having some type of therapy. You shouldn't be in therapy and not make sure that maybe some medication isn't warranted for whatever you might be going through at the time.
Because I'm sorry. Go ahead, doctor.
I was just going to say, as far as the doctor piece, a psychologist is a doctor too.
Yes.
So we have to help people understand that a doctorate means just a certain level of training or expertise in a certain area, right? So people who have PhDs, have doctorates of psychology, they didn't go to medical school. So medical doctors have doctorates of medicine. So that's the difference. And a medical doctor can specialize in obstetrician, gynecology, pediatrics, psychiatry, etc. And there are some states that have now allowed for psychologists to prescribe. Some of the first states were Louisiana and New Mexico. Louisiana after Katrina, areas where there's such a huge shortage, because we know that's a problem as well. So in order to allow people access to medicine, they have developed training programs for psychologists to specifically focus on prescribing psychotropic medication.
And nurse practitioners now can do that as well, correct?
Yes. Nurse practitioners as well.
Nurse practitioners has really stepped in, I think, and filled a large gap in service delivery for medication monitoring. The addition of nurse practitioners being able to do that has really helped people get what they need.
We get similar to the psychiatrist. I always place the psychiatrist at the top, but again, and it varies from one state to the next as far as how much autonomy. But again, we get to prescribe, diagnose, again, very similar to what the psychiatrist can do. But we went through nursing school, and it's a master or a doctorate's degree in nursing.
And so from a clinical, so when I was in the room in the hospital, and I was like seeing, my 10-year-old self, my 12-year-old self, and I was like, oh my God. And the nurse that had been there for 40 years, she said, okay, you're having spiritual depression at that time. And I wanted to ask Prophetess and Pastor Jeanette your thoughts about the spiritual aspect of mental health and depression. And, I've heard some people reference it, oh, you got the devil in you. And I'll be like, no, I don't have the devil in me. It's not the devil, but you can speak to it if from that standpoint. Prophetess, you can start, and then pastor, you can chime in on that whole question of faith and how that interplays, because I did have to lean into my faith. It was like, but I couldn't lean into my faith till I had the re-up. I needed the re-up because I needed the medicine. It was like a whole, how do I do it? Go.
I will start out quickly and defer to the queen, your mother, on this one. But
I was gonna leave her last because she gonna really talk. She gonna do a whole sermon.
Oh, so. I know she's gonna work with it. She's gonna work with it. So that's why I'm getting out of her way. Like they say in the pulpit, I'm gonna be quick. But what I have experienced when it comes to people suffering from depression and tying that into, the spiritual aspect is, I hate to say, maybe they're typically they always complain about, I don't know how to hear from God. I don't know how to connect with God. And I've experienced where they don't really have a strong prayer life, or they don't know how to pray,
right,
or how to really, study the Bible. They don't have a good scripture basis. They're basically lost, and everything is very cerebral, very emotional, and they're focused on life, and things that are going on in front of them, like in the carnal side, more so than reaching and hearing from God in the spiritual side. That's what I've experienced when depression comes in. It's all encompassing in the carnal side and the physical and what they're feeling, their emotional side. And so they fall prey to that. And then there's a heaviness that encompasses them in the mind, and they feel trapped and can't get out of it because they don't have a God connection. They don't know how to hear from Him. They don't know how to. And a lot of times they vacillate and say, "Well, am I hearing from God or is it me? I don't know." Training, So that's what I've experienced. So
yes,
I don't have to wait for your mom.
Go, Pastor Jeanette.
Okay, I agree with Prophet June. You must pull on your faith. You have to believe that there is a higher source. I can only talk about my Christianity. I know there are those who may be suffering, not this mental wellness, that may not believe in the same source that I believe in. But whatever that source is, I encourage one to grab and begin to put in place a spiritual discipline that takes you to that place where you can find calm, and where you can find peace, and where you can find love. And when you do that on a regular basis, then you're able to, I think, work with your 10-year-old in you, the 11-year-old in you. When you learn how to talk to your source, I talk to God, and I then talk to Jesus Christ, my personal Savior. I really believe that when you have that true connection, if you say you have faith, then you have to buy into that faith. I believe that in order to understand that from a Christian perspective, you do have to study to show yourself approved, to understand. I mean, really get into it, just like you would have done when you were going to your secular school. You have to read that stuff and ask questions about that stuff, and to know who you are, how you even became who you are. I think someone already talked about when you were, even before you were born and before you were named, I mean, you were somebody. And so you have to go all the way back and pull on that faith. I think God speaks to us. And when we learn how to hear God's voice in that spiritual space that we make, and then it can help us to release and to talk about just what we're doing now. Be vulnerable, be transparent, and look to the hills from which come our help, because then we realize where our help comes from. And that's where we go. God will lead us to some of us, the people that are on this panel, or to whoever that help is for you. God will lead you there. And you have to believe into that, not just believe it, but believe into that. And so I use my certified life coaching experience together with my pastoral counseling, to help a person try to get there, try to understand that the love that they have, we can nurture it, we can water it, we can fertilize it, and we can pick out all those stones and all those bricks and all that stuff that's there, laying there, causing havoc in our lives, causing us to be anxious, and causing us even to recall some of the terrible things that has happened in our lives. But once we're able to spit that stuff out and then talk about it in love and in happiness and joy, then we began to heal.
Thank you, Mom. Amen. I should pass out the collection plate after that, y'all. Dr. Rita, I want to chime in on the holistic side. And we have literally, what, 15 more minutes? We need a... Oh, okay. Okay, cool. Never mind. We keep going. All right. I want to talk about the holistic stuff, Dr. Rita.
Oh,
give it to me.
Could we go to Queen? Could we go to Queen? She wanted to add something real quick.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Yeah, it'll be brief. So
yes,
what
Queen.
I was thinking when my teammates were speaking was, I know I'm leaving one component out, but one whole self is we're spiritual, we're mental, physical component, emotional component. And if we don't feed all of those things, something's gonna die.
That's right.
So if we don't feed the person as a whole and what those entities are, something will suffer. So unfortunately for certain groups of people, it's the spiritual component. We don't want to deal with that because we don't know what connection to make. And so there are just so many variables to that. But that's all I needed to share.
And we're going to circle back on that because I was going to come to you about that very thing that you just said. After we want to talk about the intricacies of all and how all this is all going to play into someone's wellness on this journey. I want to talk to Dr. Rita because this was another recipe that I used, which was the cannabis. You say it. Say the word. The CBD.
Yes. And so thank you, Allison. You are a little choppy, but I think I heard the question, and that is,
well, maybe it's this mic.
Yes.
Okay. How is that now?
That is.
Am I better? Okay.
Much better.
Okay. Got it. Sorry about that.
No worries. So yes, just a little bit about a physiological system that we all have that we may not know about, and that's the endocannabinoid system. And this is a system that regulates our mood, our sleep-wake cycle, our inflammation or pain we may have in our body, our whole release of neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine. And so when Allison was going through, and before she was hospitalized, I did introduce her to CBD, cannabidiol. And when we consume CBD, yes, it is from the cannabis plant, but it is the source of cannabis that does not give you a high. What it does, it puts our body back in balance. It puts those neurotransmitters that will sometimes cause our mood to be out of balance, to put it back in balance. So CBD gummies is something that Allison was able to use to sleep. And we know sleep deprivation can cause dis-ease in our mood and our mental health. She was also able to reduce anxiety and the panic that she was having. And so this system, this endocannabinoid system, the more we learn about this new science, that we will be able to use a holistic means of addressing our mood and addressing our mental wellness, along with exercise. You know, when we talk about yoga or Pilates or even running, we talk about those endorphins. Well, really what's going on in our body is that we are releasing more endogenous cannabinoids that help our mood, that help us to sleep, to help us to feel more joy. and less depression and anxiety. So that's a little bit, and you'll hear more in the coming weeks and months about the science that surrounds CBD and cannabidiol.
And I was able to use it now because I 8 months ago titrated off of my cycle meds. I was on an antidepressant. I was on Ativan, which was a PRN. I took as needed. And I was also on an anti-anxiety meds too, because they were initially treating me in the hospital for anxiety disorder because I was having it. But while I was there, I developed, or probably already had it, depression. And so I was able to titrate down under the supervision of a psychiatrist. So anybody that's watching that is listening and want to learn more about meds and what does it mean, and if you're scared to take it, I encourage you to go to thebraintruth.com, click on all these ladies are there. You can connect with them and really be informed on your mental health or mental wellness journey, because everything that worked for me may or may not work for you. That's why we're here. We're here on my recipe, my journey. And so now 8 months ago, I was able to titrate off of my medication. And now when I need it, I use the CBD. So that's my story. So Stephanie, you're a motivational speaker. You're a seeker of love. Tell me, your own insight on if somebody was watching right now, and they are watching because I'm getting all kind of buzzing everywhere. Tell me what you think about this mental wellness conversation and how you would welcome them into this family, welcome them into the fold, because I've got a woman, we may bring her on the show next week or the following week, that's going to need all of us to envelop her. So I know you are a coach. I know that you are a motivator. What would you say to somebody listening right now with the information from a layman's standpoint?
Yeah, absolutely. One, just even circling back to some of the things that Prophetess June and Pastor Jeanette said, because in addition to the certified life coaching and motivational speaking and all of that, there is a Christian, a spiritual component to it, because that's who I am, right? I can only go from who I am and what my truth is. And I think that oftentimes there is a stigma on being able to even seek out help, to be able to admit that help is needed, to be able to admit that maybe I do need to talk to someone, maybe I am going through something. So as a life coach or as a motivational speaker, and even as a minister, it's just allowing people to understand that we all are in need of help sometimes, but this does not have to be the sum total of our lives. This is not the sum total of who we are. It's something that we're going through. And sometimes the answer, as we are searching, as we are praying, as we are going through this journey, is to be able to seek out help, is to be able to go to someone who may be able to have answers. Scripture says that in the multitude of counsel, there is safety. And so there is a safety to being able to go out and to be able to just admit and say, listen, I am at a place where I cannot do it by myself. And so that's really what the coach does. I'm not able to prescribe medicine. I'm not going to diagnose you. But what I am going to do is help to give you the tools to be able to search out the help that you do need, and then to be able to maximize what you already have on the inside, so that you're able to live your very best life. And for me, I don't have all the terminologies. But what I do know, because I've had my own experience, is sometimes it's just a matter of being able to say, listen, something's not right. Something's off. I need some help. And to know that that's okay. That doesn't make me any less of a person. That doesn't make me any less saved. It doesn't make me any less intelligent or any of those things that the enemy would try to make us feel like if we're going through something. But recognizing that help is available, it's just a matter of us going out there and seeking it out and being vulnerable enough to know that in my weakness, God is strong. in my weakness, he is able to show his strength, and he is able to do everything that I need for him to do. And scripture also says that it's his desire that we prosper and be in good health, even as our soul prospers. And that health is all inclusive. That's our mind, our body, our soul, our emotions, and recognizing that he has given us everything that we need to be able to walk in that health. And that is our portion as his children.
Stephanie. Okay, so we're going to continue this conversation here, guys, on our Switch and on thebraintruth.com. Right now, I'm going to say goodbye to my YouTube people. Tune in next week on The Brain Truth. Come here 8 p.m. Central Standard. We love you. We're logging off on YouTube, but we're staying here live on Facebook and at thebraintruth.com. Thank you, YouTube. So we have a question. And I don't know if you guys can see it or if I'm the only person that can see it, but it's from Mimi Harden. Can you provide tips on how to overcome mental blocks for working at home during the COVID pandemic? Woo! Okay. I don't know who want to take that one because it could go either way, y'all. Overcome mental blocks. Okay.
I mean, there's been a
Who
lot.
wants to take?
I can take that if you like.
Okay.
There's been a lot that's happened with COVID. You know, people are used to going to work. Sometimes that's where you get your feed of other people, especially if you have young children. You know, you get to go to work and have adult conversation with people. And now you're stuck at home, and you're always, your roles as a mom, as a wife, as a husband, as a whatever your roles are, kind of get mushed because you're in the same environment. So it's really important at home, if you're working from home, that you make sure that your environment that you have to work at home is separate from your day-to-day life, because sometimes that can get really clouded, and you do want to still make sure that you're keeping a good work-life balance, which is often hard to do when you're at home. And then make sure that you're taking breaks, that you're turning the computer off, that you don't feel like you have to work through your lunch or whatever because you're at home. And just really, focus on making sure that you are setting boundaries. Sometimes it's harder to set boundaries when you're at home. The expectation sometimes from jobs, even during this COVID, is that you're at home. So just being sure that you're setting your good boundaries for yourself, you're separating yourself, and that you're continuing to focus on a good work-life balance.
You could say, go queen, go queen.
I think one of the things that I noticed in working from home all of last year is at some point we need to reinvent what we do with our minds. So we shower at home, we don't drive anywhere, we come to the kitchen, and like my teammate said, have a separate section, but you have to get outside. You have to get outside, rain or shine. Getting outside and just walking, there are so many things that that you can take in from just a stroll. And I believe that's a good way to kind of decompress from always being in. Aside from the kids, take a walk with the kids, take a walk without the kids, but make that a part of your routine in order for that whole work at home thing to not become so monotonous.
And that's so important because a lot of times we use the drive home from work to decompress. But if you're already home, people are expecting you to just jump right into your role at home. And so you do need to take that break. That was a really good suggestion, to really take that break, because you don't have that time to decompress if you're not driving anywhere, not leaving the house.
Yeah, I had read something that for every, what was it? I think it was every 20 minutes of exercise gave you 2 hours of no depression, or I don't know, somebody can maybe Dr. Gettings. So I would force myself. I remember walking. I just remember walking and I was crying the whole time. Everybody in the neighborhood was like, you okay? I'm like, yes, I'm okay. Why do you keep asking me? Oh, I'm crying while I'm walking. I was just trying to get that 20 minutes in because I knew I was going to help that fight or flight, and get my blood going. But I was just and I just kept going. And when I came back, I had about 2-3 hours where it was just kind of like, okay, I can kind of manage a bit. Why was that? Why is exercise medically help you?
So to answer your question and also the question that was posed, I think in regards to the lifestyle that we were all forced into with the pandemic, it almost feels like imprisonment. You know, you're looking at the same four walls, your sunlight isn't that great. You've got to sit on these Zoom calls. I mean, it just becomes very monotonous and very mundane and very boring and very over it. So what I would encourage people to do is incorporate things that can actually help improve your stress levels, which are things that naturally improve our systems in our body that help us to relax. Like Dr. Rita McGuire already mentioned, your endocannabinoid system. So regular exercise helps to release certain endorphins and also cannabinoids and other neurotransmitters, AKA your runner's high. It truly is preventative when it comes to a lot of dis-ease states in the body. And also, I can't say enough about sleep. COVID got us all into a lot of bad habits. And if you look at statistics, substance abuse and alcohol use has skyrocketed during these times. You want to make sure your nutrition is good, that you're not staying up late because you don't have to commute. So you convince yourself you only need 3 hours of sleep just to hop on a Zoom. No. So we want to make sure we're incorporating healthy lifestyle habits all the time. Once again, your brain and your neurological system needs the same tender love and care as your heart, as your kidneys, as everything else. So healthy lifestyle habits, I think, is what really helps us to push through. And lastly, I would say just pay attention to how you're thinking on a daily basis, just your inner dialogue, because when you are in the same environment and you're not getting other feedback, it's easy for things to be on repeat, even if it's negative. So you want to make sure you pay attention to what you're taking in, the content, right? Check out your apps that allow you to meditate, listen to music, all of that. I can have a whole concert in my living room for 15 minutes and then go. So you got to be creative.
Me too. I'll be dancing. I did everything. Dr. Rita would know. I'll be texting her. She's like, okay, I have a whole baby I'm delivering right now, but I'll call you back. And she was always like accessible to me. I was like, shoot, I got a free doctor friend, because, you know, that's part of it. The psychosomatic, you know, that's what happened when I went into the emergency room on July 15th, where I stayed 19 days at River Edge Hospital, was that they looked into the system at St. James Hospital and noticed that I was there all the time. And they were like, oh, okay, she got to get this, you know, because we start to think we're having a heart attack, or, you know, everything is exaggerated. So why is it that we take on the psychosomatic? I'm going to ask that question, and then I'm going to ask another question to everybody, because I want to get to this real conversation, because we have about a good 15 more minutes, according to my producer over here. The stigma. I want to talk about the stigma after you tell me why, you know, that stuff was happening to me, whatever. I want to go to the stigma, and I'm going to tell y'all why in a minute, but answer that somebody, maybe Kathy or somebody.
So in regards to the physical symptoms that you experience with that?
Yeah, like I was having psychosomatic. I mean, when I first started experiencing my mental wellness, I felt like I was drowning. Like I was laying in the bed, and I remember telling my husband, there's something wrong with me, like for real. And it's so hard to describe it. It's like I was drowning. I was disappearing. It was debilitating. It was like I just had to get through the day, and then try to go to sleep, and then you wake up, and then you say, I got to try to just get through the day. And it was like, if I could just get through the day, and maybe tomorrow, and just get through the day. And I know whoever's watching, I got a lot of people right now, I know what that feels like. And I don't know if any of you guys ever experienced, but just getting through the day. So I just want to know.
I just have one question, because like when you say the term psychosomatic and soma, body, and psyche, mind, again, you're talking about the brain connection to everything else in your body and vice versa. what's appropriate when a person is experiencing any acute mental health symptoms, whether it be low mood, anxiety, heart racing, things like that. You first want to make sure that you do a full workup, that you take an assessment of all your organ systems, do panels as far as your thyroid function, other functionality, because this is the analogy I always give people, and it may not be the best, but when I talk to a person, even about what they consume and how it impacts their mental health, they say, oh, well, you know, what does that have to do with how I'm feeling or how I'm thinking? I mean, what you consume impacts how you function mentally, and also vice versa. If I sit and I drink a bunch of alcohol, you're going to know about it through my behavior, right? Yes. Because it's having an impact on my mental functioning. So I'm just use that as an example to say everything that we do is psychosomatic. There is no separation. And that's what we need to get away from, because you can't expect to be functioning well physically and not be functioning well mentally, and vice versa.
Well, I went, trust and believe me, I went to the cardiologist, the GI, I went to the neurologist, I went every ologist that I could think of in my whole database of doctors. I had every workup. That's why there was a clear diagnosis.
So then from there, they said, oh, it must be mental.
Clear diagnosis.
That's where you hit that wall where, like we talked about, we are limited in terms of how far we can go with assessing our central nervous system, levels of neurochemicals, things of that nature, even our imaging, right? It's still limited. So that being said, though, don't question that not doing well from a mental perspective can make you feel exhausted, can make you lack motivation, can make you feel like you have no reason to get out of bed. And I know you also mentioned lack of sleep, which I see a lot of people who present with panic symptoms and they are feeling their fight or flight system engaged, and they haven't slept for days. So going back to adrenaline and norepinephrine and dopamine and all these chemicals that you're producing abnormally because you haven't slept, what does that do to your cardiovascular system? Well, it can make you feel like your heart rate is up, right? It can make you feel short of breath. So it's all connected. I say we're intertwined by design. That's how we're designed. We got to stop separating it so much so that people can respect and understand how all the systems depend on one another.
Well said, Dr. Giddings, because I was going to say the exact same thing about all the different chemicals in our body. You know, they by themselves, they create physical symptoms and things, as well as, like she said, our diet and lack of sleep. All of those things can play a major role. So, and everything else you said. So.
Yeah, because I would wake up and literally my heart, I feel like I'm having a heart attack. And what are some of the things that we can do? I know that is the cortisol, right? The cortisol. So a lot of people are on here. Yeah. So I'm asking, how can we naturally, is there something that we can do naturally, spiritually, whatever? How do we get that cortisol up?
Alex, can I say something?
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm telling you, when I get in that space where I'm just anxious, I start thinking about your dad, and I just get so anxious and my brain goes left. I have to stop. And because of my spirituality, take my mind off of the enemy and put my mind on my source, who I know I can talk to, that will calm my fears and my anxiety, not trying to diminish anything that the health professionals do, because I think those that we go to that are in the health profession are those that God placed there to help us through all of these things that we go through, our mental wellness. But when it gets to the point where it has you thinking that all of these physiological things are going on, but when you go to the doctor, nothing's wrong.
Does that happen, Mom?
You have to then pull on your faith. You got to pull on your spirituality. You have to go to the one who created you in his image. And you have to know that when you start talking to your source, then the enemy can't get through. It's like talking to someone and someone's calling me and they can't get through. The enemy, the line is busy. You can't get through. So you continue to talk. It calms you down. It really does. It calms those endorphins or what all of those things down. And then you begin to calm the things down naturally. I think that God has placed in us a way to calm those things. God created it. So if he created it, then he has created a way for us to sometimes take control of us. Not that we don't have to go get professional help, but in those instances, you need immediate help, and you could be your own ER.
The question.
Distraction is very helpful.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to monopolize. I just want to say one thing is being careful with what we, as far as how far we've come with medicine or medical doctors or the medical system being able to see things that are wrong. There was a time where we couldn't see a person having seizures, and we then gave the explanation of some type of possession or demon, etc.
Right.
I'm just that as an example, as a theme of when we haven't evolved intellectually to know how to identify certain things that would be considered not functioning right in our body. That is oftentimes the explanation that we go to. And so I just want to be careful with that, just in the sense that I think that we're still living in a time where there are a lot of things that we don't know about how the central nervous system works. And Dr. McGuire, you can speak to this too. We went through medical school and nobody even taught us about an endocannabinoid system. So, I mean, you know, I graduated in 2007. So there's so many things that we still haven't identified within this amazing being that God created. So I just think that if you go through certain assessments, and like we said, it's multifactorial, it's spiritual, it's emotional, it's physiological. I'm not undermining any of it, but I just want to say that we have each component has its place, and it's all intertwined.
Because Mom, you've experienced anxiety, right?
Absolutely.
And depression, and you have to see somebody. So my thing is, it's I wouldn't say it's real what's happening physiologically to us. And you know, I was praying and praying and praying. I'm a praying maniac, but because I couldn't even wake up in the morning physically to pray, you know, so things are happening to you, so you can't even get to that place where you're like, you know, God, please, whatever. I mean, 9 days went by in a hospital till I came, and then I got on my knees. You know,
I've learned my spiritual discipline though. And I think that it takes time. I've learned my spiritual discipline. I know what I can do for me to calm my anxiety.
Yeah.
I know what I can do for me to find joy and peace. And it won't last 24/7. It's going to come slipping in. But then I go back to that place that I know that if I have to take it 3 times a day, it's like taking my medicine. If I'm taking it as needed PRN, I have to do that. If I'm taking it twice a day, I have to do that. That spiritual discipline that gets me to a place that I can try to handle my depression and my anxiety. Yes, I've been given medication. But because I am so strong in my faith, I'm just so sorry. I don't take that medication. I really have to be down and out and probably have placed my spirituality on a low if I take it. But I haven't taken my medication in a year because I can find peace and joy and love and honor in my connection to my spiritual discipline.
One of the things I will say, encourage like my patients for them to let their guards down and ask themselves if there is something that they know is contributing to the way they're feeling, because some things are situational. And so, and whether it be because it was a fight with the loved one yesterday or something, or they don't like their job, and sometimes things like that, once they recognize and that, okay, it's related to this, it can make it a little bit more possible for them to calm themselves down and move on. That's not always going to be the case, but I do find, that if I just say, let your guards down and be honest with yourself, what do you think is contributing to the way you're feeling right now?
Right.
Again, that can be huge. Otherwise, people say, I don't know why I'm stressed. I don't know why I'm depressed. I don't know. And the reality is they do know. And, either they're just, ignoring it or don't have an easy answer to it or solution to it. So they just allow, not to really think about it, which is overwhelming, so.
June, you had something? Unmute yourself. Okay.
I wanted to add to what Pastor Jeanette was saying about the spiritual side. And we know God works through medicine, right? And God works alone. And I think about when she was talking about, how she goes back to her faith. And I was sitting here reminded about the story when the father brought his son to Jesus and said, your disciples couldn't help my child. I took him to them and they couldn't cast this thing out. They couldn't move this illness that my child had. And Jesus said, that's because some things only come out with prayer and fasting. So I thought about how when we do have these maladies and mental illness, I don't want to say mental illness, we're going through mental wellness and trying to get better. Fasting is a very, necessary component sometimes when you're coupling that with prayer, because it centers you, it clears the spirit, it brings a settling and a peace and a steadiness, and it causes you to focus more when you're fasting. So that's something that I have done. I have suggested, to those that come to me for counseling and for prophetic advisement. And it really does work. When we go fasting with prayer, it just draws you in and causes you to focus on God. And then when you're not focusing so much on what am I going to eat, when we're going to go to the restaurant, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
You're really getting in a place, in your quiet place, and wanting to hear from him. You're making a sacrifice. And he's saying that you're denying the flesh and making a sacrifice for him to come in. And many times we get answers in prayer. So the Lord spoke to me one time when I was going to have surgery, completely unrelated. And I prayed and he said, go get a CT scan. I'm like, CT scan for what? On my abdomen. Not even, now I had a hysterectomy years ago. So I'm like, why do I need a CT scan on my abdomen? He said, before you go and have the surgery, go get a CT scan. Went and got a CT scan, and lo and behold, there was a fibroid on my ovary because I still had ovaries. Never would have known that had I not been in prayer trying to hear God, what should be done in this medical situation. So it's so important to connect to him because you get answers. And so when I went in to have the surgery, they removed the fibroid, which they never would have known was there had I not heard from God and told them. And here's another thing, how insurance works. Well, what do you want a CT scan for if the doctor hasn't given an order, to add that to the medical order? No one questioned me. When I went and asked him, could I have a CT scan? He said, sure, I'll write it up. You can go next week. So it's important. Your spiritual part is extremely important.
Oh, I am so, and that's exactly why we're all here, because this was the recipe. I mean, I meditate and I pray, and that was part of this whole orchestrated journey. It's almost to a point that I was supposed to do all the pieces that led to this moment now, I was supposed to need to go see a psychiatrist. I was supposed to go see a therapist. I was supposed to go have Rita give me the CBD because now I got a CBD dispensary. And now we have a company, we've gotten closer. And then I met, God is going to orchestrate it the way he's going to orchestrate it. Period. So whatever it is, anybody that's watching, listening, I know I've got some people on here. I don't know if you guys have any questions right here on Facebook Live. If you're going through something with your mental wellness, or somebody in your family or your caretaking, he's orchestrating it. He's orchestrating it because now I can literally tell people my story. I know what it feels like to be depressed. I know what it feels like to have anxiety, social anxiety. I know what all of this feels like. So I thank all of you. We've got a few minutes. I want to go to everybody and kind of get an idea of where do we go from here. I remember when I was in the hospital and when I discharged from the hospital, and I said that last time, when you get medication, they give you directions. You go to Walgreens, you pick it up, right? Tells you when to make it, what's the contradictions for, blah, blah, blah. And if I was getting a port put in from an infusion or all these people, it's going to help. But when you get discharged from a psychiatric hospital, nobody has any type of little baggie with directions. Here's the contradictions. Here's the ingredient. This is what you need to take a dose of every day. And then not only that, some type of handbook, maybe we can create it. Let's put a disclaimer. We're trademarking this. The Brain Gang is going to come up with a handbook for the family and the friends, because we have to go out into the real world and people are going to say stuff to you. People say stuff to me and it's going to trigger you and it's going to maybe set you back or set you forward. I put on my Facebook, what I was going through, and this woman inboxed me and she said, I would have put that on Facebook. You're a strong woman. Everybody know who you are, blah, blah. Why are you going to tell everybody you got, this going on mentally, blah, blah, blah. And I said to her, you broke your ankle last week. You told everybody to pray for you. My brain broke. How about that? I'm not ashamed. I'm not going to hold on to the stigma. And we're going to talk about it. And I'm going to change the narrative of a strong Black woman, or a woman, not Black, all women, to talk about mental health and to say it's okay not to be okay. Michelle Obama said it, and then the whole world's like, "Ooh, yeah, okay, it's trendy." But we are all having some form of it. I mean, we all watched George Floyd get murdered. We all are in lockdown for COVID. We were scared of the vaccine. We want the vaccine. We're scared of COVID. All these fears, all this anxiety. So we all, if we were just being real with each other, have some form of mental wellness at some point or another. And for me, prayer, spirituality, medication, not being on all of those things for me, Allison, was the winning combination. And so I don't take any other one over the other one. It was the combination. And I have to continue to use that for my wellness. I have to wake up every day and be disciplined in my prayer and be disciplined, because I'm not on any meds anymore. So I do have to be disciplined, Mom, in my prayer, because I don't want to take those medicines anymore. Not that for those who take it, for me, I just didn't want to. So let's just go around and say, what are we going to do about the stigma? How are we going to change it? And what's the next phase? Because I want to lobby for that. I want to lobby for some type of universal portal when you go into the hospital. I believe when I was there with COVID, they take your phone. For those of you, when you go into a psychiatric hospital, they take your phone, can't call nobody. And then there's nothing in there that's telling them like, oh, I'm a Christian, or I'm allergic to this, or I had some pre-existing stuff. They didn't give me my heart medication for 7 days. And next thing you know, I was having an emergency EKG because they thought that I was delusional when I was saying that I was on some other medication. Like, you're not on that. Yes, I am. No, you're not. Yes, I am. And so every day I would say, I need my meds. They'd be like, no, you don't. Yes, I do. And so, I think that's something that's important. Unless there's something I'm missing, I don't know about, any doctors want to tell me. I believe that there's a lot of disparities and things that need to change in the mental health world when it comes to mental health, and for especially us, these people, Anybody want to start?
I want to start. I just want to chime in and saying that I believe that all of us, every single one of us, has had clinical depression. We've all been clinically depressed at some point in our life. In 2000, I lost my mom. I lost my marriage, went through a divorce. and lost my job. I went through the top 3 stressors all at once in 2000. So I believe wholeheartedly that your faith, whatever your higher being and belief is, your health, your physical health, what you're consuming, your sleep, your hydration, your supplementation, your exercise, all of these things need to be something. And I think we all need and to have a therapist. That is so important. Everything aside, I have a therapist, right? I'm not ashamed to say that. We all need to talk to someone, especially now during this global pandemic and all the stress and anxiety that front line workers like myself, and we see death every day, but just knowing to keep the conversation open, that mental health is so important. Like Dr. Natasha Gettings spoke, it's all intertwined and tied. Our brain gut axis, everything is combined and tied to our overall health of our mind. So keeping the conversation open, letting people know it's not a stigma. We all need help. We all need help. And we need to holistically look at it with lifestyle modification, with medication. Yes, there is a role for medication. There's a role in weaning yourself safely off of medication and incorporating things like exercise, diet, sleep, hydration, and of course, different herbs and supplements. So that's all I want to say. Thank you. Thank you, Allison.
Thank you, Dr. Rita.
And Allison, I want to just say how this conversation is just so awesome. You know, I've dedicated myself to Alzheimer's Association, which is also a mental condition. And it's because our communities do think all of this mental health, mental wellness is a taboo. But we have to get on the ground. We have to get on the ground fast, and we got to move and inform our communities how they can be a change agent, how we can help, how we can get early intervention, how we can learn how to do spiritual disciplines. This is absolutely awesome. And God did it for such a time as this, when we're ready now to heal it. We're ready now to be transparent. We're ready now to be vulnerable, to talk to one another so that we can get to a better place in our life, which God intends for us to live holistically in love and peace and joy and happiness. I thank you for even, well, God pushed you to this.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Mommy. Pastor Jeanette.
Allison, can I just say, listening to everyone, I think a very important component is breathing hope back into it, right? Because sometimes we can be going through things and in that moment, it feels so hopeless. But when I listen to your story, you went through all of that and it brought you here. And so for people to know that, yes, you may be going through something. Yes, you may have experienced trauma. Yes, it can feel like there is no hope, but joy comes in the morning and God works everything together for our good. And so I think it's about letting people know that there is hope. This is a moment. Is not the full definition of your life. There is help, there are resources, and through this, God is going to be able to bring you to a place of purpose, and there is purpose in the pain. And when you look at anyone who is doing great, amazing things, they have a story, and oftentimes that story has trauma and hurt and pain and hardship. But when we allow God to use that for his good and for our good, we're able to come out of on the other side, not only stronger for ourselves, but it becomes a testimony for other people. And it allows us to give other people the strength to know that they can too make it out.
Thank you, Stephanie. Woo, y'all.
I wanted to say, Allison, too, one thing I encourage people to identify their resources, particularly like people, you know, positive people in their lives, or to just try to accumulate that, because that can be very helpful. And not everyone have access, or again, you know, struggling with going to see a therapist, but sometimes having the right combination of people, whether it be one person or multiple people, versus you allowing yourself to be around people that's toxic and make you more depressed, make you more anxious. So again, identifying those people that make you feel when when you're stressed, you call this friend, or when you're depressed, you might call another friend, or but
or
make
you
sure
might have to block some people. I
right,
did love
or block some people. So
love to block.
Yeah. So
But
check your resource, the people that you're around, and try to accumulate as many positives as possible, and don't be in denial of those ones that's contributing to your
exactly.
mental health.
Boundaries.
Right.
Okay. Let's see, Queen. Go, Queen.
No, I was just gonna I'm gonna tag on to what Kathy said. It is really important for us to surround ourselves with people that are true support. Now, if you have people in your circle that can't tell you you shouldn't wear that color, or no, that's maybe not the right choice, then maybe we need to consider what to do with that. But a support system that's going to love you no matter who you are is what we need. And it has to start with us. Growing up, we didn't do what was that word, signifying, and everybody always got to get the last word on you and all that. We don't want to surround ourselves with that. We need true individuals in our corner and people to love us exactly the way we are, because I don't need to be changed.
That's right. Thank you, Queen. Dr. Gettings, then Sandra, then Prophet.
I just want to say that I 100% love the way that you brought every area of specialty, if we want to call it that, tonight, showing people that there are multiple tools in your toolkit.
Yes.
And how your mom said what works for her is so important, because everybody's recipe, treatment plan, if you will, for achieving their mental wellness and overcoming some of those mental health challenges is going to be different, because we're different. So I don't think anyone needs to feel that someone else's recipe or ingredients, that they have to completely mimic that, and that you should be confident in identifying what works for you. I may pound out Peloton and get off floating and feeling like I'm on cloud 9. That may not do it for the next person. Somebody else may want to read a book underneath a nice dim lamp. I don't know. But the point I'm trying to make is, don't be quick to judge. Be open to explore and figure out what helps you and what works for you. There are some people who I work with who have to take medication, and that's how it is, right? You could say that about other diagnoses. If I'm gonna go back to seizures because it's a brain condition. Well, I have seizures, so I have to take an anti-seizure med, and we don't even look at it the same. We talked about Alzheimer's. I lost my grandmother from Alzheimer's. I watched that disease progress for 8+ years. We know all of these disease states that can exist in the brain, but for some reason, when it comes to our emotional well-being and that, we kind of put it in a different box. And I think we have to not do that. And I'm here for the journey. I believe this group is going to do a lot. So I'm excited. And everybody else thanked you in the beginning. I'm thanking you now for having me. And I hope I can come back.
Thank you.
Well, I thank you as well. I thank everybody on this panel. I think it's been such a good discussion. But I think that when you talk about removing the stigma and what can we do about that, I think it goes back to education. And I think it goes back to how we look at mental health. You have to go, when you're in grammar school, you have to go to, before you get in school, you have to have a physical. Before you start a job, you have to have a physical. But who's looking at people's mental status when they're
that whole part?
When they're starting a new job? Nobody's looking at people's mental health. And there's been, there's reasons why, when people were working and all we're worrying about is how we're going to put food on the table. We don't have time for emotion. Men have been told, you don't cry about that. We don't cry. Those are the things that have to be changed. The way that we look at emotional state, the way that we embrace our emotions. People want to shy away from those. We don't have time to deal with that. But if you had cancer, you'd have time to deal with that. If you had something else going on in your life, you'd have time to deal with that. So I just think it's going to take a shift in perspective on how we really look at mental health, that it's not separate, as we've been talking about today, from any other health component that we have. We only get attention to it when somebody is crying out for help, or they've lost their mind, is what people say, right? Or they've, had a breakdown. It shouldn't have to get to that before we do, because there's a lot of preventative care. Let's teach kids how to deal with anxiety. Let's teach kids how to deal with depression. Let's not wait until they're depressed and they're anxious and then we try to figure out what to do with them. So that, I think that growing, and I look at this team as really pushing this agenda forward in a different fashion than it has been before.
Yes.
So
thank you, Sandra. Well said. Well said.
Okay, it's my turn.
Yes, ma'am.
I disappeared because I had to go get my charger.
Oh, okay.
I fade to black permanently for the rest of the night. Let me say this. One of the things that has always been my problem is staying too long. Staying in a relationship that was going nowhere too long, staying in a marriage too long, staying in an abusive situation with a friendship. I always stayed too long. And why do we stay too long? It's basically because we beat ourselves up and feel like there's something wrong with us if we can't fix it and be a better person so the relationship will work out, whatever that may be. If it's with a husband, with a friend, with a family member. And finally, I'm like, why did it take me so many years with all of the spiritual knowledge I have to leave a relationship that God said he doesn't want you lukewarm. He doesn't want you to halfway like him. You either be hot or cold or step. He tells you in the word, I don't want you lukewarm. So why do we accept lukewarm relationships? If he says, I want you to be hot for me, I want you to be passionate for me, don't we deserve that in our relationship, for somebody to really want to support us, really want to be there, give to us what we give to them in return? Yes. So I said to myself, it's so cliche to say, get rid of toxic relationships. People say that, but do they really do it?
Yes.
You really do it, because it is hard to do. For a lot of us, and I was one of those people, it was hard to walk away, hard to let a friend go because of a love-hate relationship. I love you, but I hate you. A little bit of poison, I think I said this to you, Allison, a little bit of poison will still kill you. It just takes longer. And so I said, you know what? This year, I said, that's it. I'm going to really eliminate toxic relationships out of my life. And I did it. And when you do that for your mental health, it takes such a weight off of you. All the doctors on the screen, I know I'm preaching to you, the choir, saying this, but it takes such a weight off of you mentally when you finally walk away and stop condemning yourself, staying, for wanting to walk away. Free yourself. And when I freed myself and said, I don't want to be in this toxic situation anymore, it was liberating. So my final words is, really get out of a toxic relationship. It doesn't matter what it is, and free yourself so you can walk into the mental health that you deserve.
Yes. Woo! I just felt like, for you all are watching, I see you, April. I see you, Don. I see all you people. Y'all can't pay for this kind of insight now. All these people charge, but y'all got it for free. Shoot, I'm going to need to get a coupon system going. Hi, Deidre. So I just want to say, you guys, thank you. I just get emotional just because when you know that you're walking in your purpose and you have an assignment, it's just so much confirmation, So we're gonna keep, this is called the Brain Game, and they're gonna be on this journey with me the whole time. So all you that have writing me and is talking to me right now that want to come on this show, these are your support, because those of us that are people who live with mental wellness, I got to start remember to say it that way, we always feel like we're alone. We feel like nobody cares. That's just the words. I'm in a lot of support groups right now on Facebook, and every day is I'm alone. Nobody cares about me. And we are all here to help you, each one of you. So before I go, I do want to acknowledge somebody before I got my brain gang. He's here. I don't know if you want to get on camera, but come here for a minute, baby. Just come here. Because when I was at it was some hard days, y'all. This is my heart. Come down a little bit, baby, so they can see your cute face. This is my son. This is Jordan Hodges. He's 23. He's handsome. He's not single though. But my son was with me for every day. And all I remember him saying all the time was, Mommy, you could do it. Mommy, you could do it. And I go, am I okay? Did I get through today? He goes, you got through today, didn't you? Mm-hmm. And he has such a beautiful soul and a beautiful disposition. And for those of you who don't have a Jordan, a Jordy Boo, we are here for you. We're here. We're your Jordy. And we're going to stand by you. We're going to stand with you. All these women can be reached on thebraintruth.com, thebraintruth.com. Go on there. They have given me their links. I mean, these are powerful, busy women. They've given me their links so you can link directly to them. So that you can get the advisement, you can get the nurturing, the care that you need. Do you want to say something just about your mama and everything? Say something. You know,
you're doing great. I don't know what to say.
Do you think I'm doing good? Or how was the journey for you? Quickly.
I mean, in the beginning, it was tough, and sometimes it is real tough. But you know, it's just something that I have to get used to for right now. Because I know it's not, permanent. It's only temporary. So you gotta work through it. Help out.
Thank you, Jordan.
You're welcome.
And he was cooking. He don't know how to cook. I was eating the most nastiest food, but I was eating because he was cooking it for me. I mean, he was doing everything he could to stand for his mother, and I was not complaining at all. And that's what we're here for, everybody. So next week, we're going to continue the conversation. We're going to introduce some youth. We're going to introduce some caretakers to the mix. I've got a lot of people that want to come tell their story, and we're gonna take our time because we want to keep educating you guys and want you to feel comfortable, and we want to make sure that this journey is what we want it to be, a journey for mental wellness. So I'm glad that we're going to talk about this month, because I want to remind you guys that October 10th is World Mental Health Day. Did I say that right? And then October 6th through the 12th is Mental Health Awareness. So we are right in the month where this is being talked about. This is prevalent. We're going to keep doing it. I worked on the board for NAMI. We just did our NAMI walks a couple of weeks ago, and we've got some really incredible things. So go to my website, thebraintruth.com. You can connect to NAMI, Illinois, NAMI South Suburbs, and there you will have all of the resources, hotlines, warm lines that you may need. Remember, you're not alone. If you feel like you are in trouble, go to the website, click on the links, and get the help that you need. So until then, we're going to keep loving on each other, because we're the Brain Truth, everybody. Say bye, Jordy Boo. See you next week, every Tuesday on intellectualradio.com and iHeartRadio.